What an exciting day. Okay. So, hello everyone. I'm Mariah Perkins. I'm the nonfiction editor of Mojo and Microcosmos this year. Thank you for coming to the Microcosmos book release. We are excited to share with you the contents of Micro's 64th issue. Microcosmos has a long history here at WSU and in Kansas. It's the longest running literary journal in the whole state, printing its first issue in 1958. Along with that history comes community, a community based in love for the arts and humanities. We saw that community show up for us while dealing with funding issues this year. Because of this, today's celebration feels twofold. First and foremost, celebrating the release of a book we are proud of, but also celebrating the readership and community built around this literary journal. So, before I introduce the editor-in-chief and we go into the reading, I'm going to talk about some logistics. Before each reader, I'm going to give a brief introduction. Then they can come up and read their piece from the journal. Directly following the readers, we will begin the open mic with a short introduction from me. And make sure that if you're reading tonight that you appropriately adjust the microphone for your height. And also the open mic 5-minute limit. Am I forgetting anything? We're good. Okay, so before I introduce our editor-in-chief, I'd like to read a poem featured in our first issue of Microcosmos 60 years ago. And it's also in this year's journal. So here it goes. Okay. Microcosmos may offer the whatever. 1, encouragement to those who enrich lives by giving expression to a medium. 2, sustenance to those who feed on the values the artists create for us, the creative outlet, those who long for the song. Okay. The first person I'd like to introduce is our fearless leader, our editor-in-chief. Throughout this year, Katie has inspired a staff to give the best of themselves to Mojo and Micro. She has a clear gift for leadership, but also a great trust in those she works with, which empowers and gives opportunities to everyone a part of the Micro staff. Thank you for such a fulfilling experience. So here's our editor-in-chief, Katie Amundsen.
Hey guys. Thanks, Mariah. That was very sweet. So I just want to thank a few people before we get started. Personally, first I want to thank the Micro editors and all of the Micro staff, readers, the party planning committee, everyone who put this all together. I really, really appreciate it. And I'd also like to thank Jana from the Ulrich for helping us problem solve and put this together because I'm really happy with it. So thank you so much. I'd also like to thank Margaret Daw for being such a great advisor. Thank you. I'd like to thank the contributors to Microcosmos and those of them who are here reading tonight. We really appreciate it, and we can't wait to hear your pieces live. Also, our artist, Rhonda Davis, is here, so I'd like to thank her as well. Her beautiful art is on the walls. If you haven't checked it out yet, definitely go take a closer look after the reading. And I'd like to thank the readers and supporters of Microcosmos. That's literally every single person in this room. I love you guys. And lastly, this is it, I promise, everyone who wrote a letter to the editor to the Sunflower in support of Microcosmos this year. We got full funding. We couldn't have done it without you guys. That's all I got.
Okay, so I did forget a thing. One thing, though, so I'm going to go back to that real quick. So you might be like, what's going on over here? So we're lucky to be surrounded by art in this building, to be supported by artists across campus. Behind me is the combined work of Hallie Lindber and Kristen Beal's Foundations in 3D Design class. It's called Cardboard Vanitas. So yeah, appreciate that we've got some other art around us too, as well as the art from our own journal. Okay, so our first reader tonight is John Kelly Yenser. He graduated, is that okay? I'm gonna read your, It has to be, okay. So he graduated in 1967, a student of literature and writing. At WSU, he read books of poets who were alive and worked on micro. Although there was no creative writing program for undergraduates and no MFA at the time, there were excellent writers on the faculty who taught prose and poetry. It is because of their efforts that Yenser later published poems and prose in journals, 2 chapbooks, and 1 collection of poems, The News as Usual, forthcoming from the University of New Mexico Press. The book has a great deal to do with Wichita. So here is John Kelly Yenser reading An Abecedarian Concerning Death in Rural America.
Never in such a pretty place out here before as this. I don't think, I think when we, in the old days, and they really were old days, we read in a bar called Blackout across the street, and it was really very dark and not nearly as cheerful. There was beer. There was no fondue. I should say that the last time I read with my daughter in the room was a long time ago in Portland, at which point she told everyone that she had had a new tattoo put on. So it was alarming to be in this room and say, oh, yeah, great, another tattoo. So I'm hoping that there are no tattoos tonight. I'm sorry? I'm just talking about your tattoos. Is that okay? Can you hear? You missed all the best lines. So.
You can hold it.
No, I can't hold it.
Okay.
I can't even see.
That's
So
as close as we can get it.
okay. So when I sent this poem in, that's all right? Is that all right? Okay, I'm sorry. When I sent this poem in, Katie, who seems to be the engine that drives everything, pointed out to me that I could not spell the title correctly. Well, this is disconcerting. When you send a poem to an editor of a magazine that you yourself used to edit, and the editor writes back and says, well, that's a nice poem enough, but, you can't spell the word abecedarian. And there was another mistake, too, but I appreciate Katie's vigilance. She's the only other person who ever read this poem. Okay, this poem, actually, okay, I'm going to stop. This poem was suggested to me by a friend who's from Nebraska. I have coffee with him every so often, and he and I tell each other lies about growing up in the Midwest. And one day the subject was how people die in the Midwest in odd ways that people don't understand who don't live out here. So I went home and worked on this poem for a while. It's called An Abecedarian Concerning Death in Rural America. And this is a kind of prompt, it's a 26-line poem that starts with each letter of the alphabet consecutively, so you go from A to Z. It's a good way to kind of start writing a poem, and it's fine until you get to X and Z. It gets a little more difficult, but this is the poem that Katie took, and I appreciate it. It's great. It's really good to be here. I like this place. At first you think it's amusing, but the list keeps growing and chills set in because death happens out here every so often, freakishly. Item: falling into a half-full and slowly filling grain elevator, the seasonal boy suffocates hours before he's dug out in the middle of the night in Iowa. Item: just stepping down from a circling tractor kills another kid who catches his pants last thing. It happens in the fall in Kansas. Or more than once, something explodes in the barn. No one hears any of it in the rain, or you think it's thunder. Later, lightning strikes the boy playing left field in the pasture. Quirky myth coming true this time. Roscoe, it was, cousin on my mother's side. Some deaths seem normal, but there's no doubt today's news reports prefer accidents uniquely rural, or most especially the occasional very suspicious one. For instance, when Walter's wife said he seized up Xmas Eve feeding the pigs and was eaten, you couldn't believe her. There were so many zeros on his policy for a whole life. Thank you. Thank you, Katie.
Okay, so our next reader is Maithili Menon. Are you ready? Okay. She's a linguist who moonlights as a poet. Originally from India, she currently teaches linguistics here at Wichita State. Here's Maithili Menon reading Absence.
So it looks like, this isn't my introduction to linguistics or history of English class, right? Because that's what I'm used to. I'm not used to, standing in front of people and reading a poem. So first of all, I want to thank all the editors of Microcosmos and the editorial team and all the people who have worked behind Microcosmos from the entire English department faculty, right? Thank you so much. You guys are awesome. And thank you for putting together this volume. So a little bit background about the poem. This poem was written in 2015 in Los Angeles, actually, when I was a graduate student at Los Angeles doing my PhD. But the poem was, it has to do with my MA days actually back in India, in Hyderabad, in a place called Hyderabad. And so many of the imagery that you see in the poem is actually from, 10, 15 years ago when I was doing my master's. So it's called Absence. The lack of therein of piercing looks, hungry syllables coated with impatience, the fake lines on your palm making its slow journey over my arm, the sweat dribbling from your forehead, corks and bottle screws, bubbling froth, meandering walks in silence, a verse or two of proof rock, the heavy breath of minimalism, clock's last sigh, boil bok choy, the blinking marker of words yet to be born, a glance, conversations in space, warmth of hands, locked in secrets, leftover drops of wine, lines of hymns, out of tune, cards dispersed, unwanted sunsets, crimson, smells of rinds of oranges, orderings rankings, transit in stations, smell of train boots, reminders of prior bookmarkers in unfinished, incomplete chapters. Thank you.
Thank you. So before introducing our next reader, I would like to highlight our featured artist, Rhonda Davis. Rhonda Davis is a Kansas-based multimedia artist predominantly known for her intricately detailed pen and ink drawings, which weave imagery and pattern to initiate a visual dialogue with her viewer. Using physical mark making, she strives to create work that explores the ways we connect or disconnect with ourselves, others, and our environment. For Davis, personal mythology and the stories woven within different cultures are a primary source of inspiration and contemplation. The natural environment became a large focus in her work after a residency in Shelton, Washington, where she witnessed the ways people engage with nature, but also witnessed the disconnect humans have in regards to their impact on something so vital to human survival. Davis holds a BFA from Wichita State University and has participated in numerous solo and group exhibitions. You can find her online at rondadavisart.com and also in this issue of Microcosmos and also on the wall over there. So we are really happy to have her in our journal. Yeah, let's give her a round of applause. So our next reader is Josh Zimmerer. He is a graduate, well soon, of the Wichita State MFA program with a concentration in fiction and will be attending University of North Texas's PhD program in the fall. His work has been published in Boltershire